Hello and welcome to the Cisco support community. Today we present a live Ask the Expert event inside Cisco Live and Networkers Virtual. During our event today, our expert will be answering your questions on AnyConnect configurations. My name is Daniel Gerson and I am the Content Manager for Cisco Live and Networkers Virtual here at Cisco. Our expert joining me today is Vikas Saxena, a Technical Support Engineer in TAC India. Welcome, Vikas.
Hello all, my name is Vikas. I'm a Cisco support engineer from TAC Bangalore. And today I'm going to talk about AnyConnect configuration, including the concepts of tunnel groups, the group policy. We will try to prepare a configuration, then deployment, and then troubleshooting.
Thanks, Vikas. Now I'd like to briefly outline the format for today's Ask the Expert event. Vikas will start with a short presentation on AnyConnect configuration for the first 25 minutes of the program, and then we will dive into the live question submissions for the remainder of the event. During our live presentation, you may submit a question to be answered by Vikas and a team of Cisco technical experts using the Submit box on the left side of your console. Simply type your question and press Submit. To see the latest questions and answers during today's presentation, be sure to click on the Refresh button just underneath the slides. You can scroll up to see the previous answers in the Q&A box. The team of technical experts is well versed in AnyConnect configuration, so please begin posting your questions now to give us the best chance of answering them. We'll be asking polling questions during this webcast, and we encourage you to participate by answering them. Just by participating in the polling questions, you'll be eligible to win a one-year Premier Pass to Cisco Live and Networkers Virtual, which will give you full access to hundreds of PDFs and on-demand webcasts. Now, let's get started with today's event. And we'll kick things off with a polling question. What is the most basic AnyConnect configuration issue that you've encountered in the past few months? Is it A, tunnel group selection, B, group policy selection, C, authentication issues, D, deployment issues, E, profiles, or F, other? Take a moment to answer. Okay, let's take a look at the results. Okay, thanks for answering that, and Vikas will tailor his presentation as needed. Now I'd like to hand the mic to Vikas, who will provide insight on AnyConnect configuration. Please go ahead, Vikas.
Hello all.
Vikas, you can start your presentation now.
So, as I already mentioned that we're going to talk about the AnyConnect, the configuration basics, including the concepts of tunnel groups, the group policy, the configuration preparation, deployment, and troubleshooting. So let's start with what is AnyConnect. AnyConnect is a VPN client using SSL as the transport mechanism. It is a full tunnel client, like a VPN client. Cisco IPsec VPN client, it's a full tunnel client. It's available for Cisco ASA 5500 series devices, and it has support for almost all the operating systems. Now I say almost as in the there are a lot of Linux flavors out there in the market, and we have not tested the AnyConnect VPN client on all the Linux flavors. So I would suggest to check the release notes of the AnyConnect version which you're trying to deploy in your environment to see if that particular flavor has been tested with. For more information, you can go to the AnyConnect release notes, and you can find in the supported systems heading which operating systems are supported. So the difference between the Cisco IPsec VPN client and Cisco AnyConnect VPN client is Cisco IPsec VPN client, as the name suggests, is an IPsec VPN client, uses the IKE version 1 and IPsec as the transport mechanism, do the encryption and decryption. Here in the AnyConnect VPN client, we use the SSL as the transport mechanism for the encryption and decryption and for the authentication of the server or the authentication of the client. Licensing information for AnyConnect Essential started from code 8.2. So what is AnyConnect Essential? AnyConnect Essential is a separately licensed SSL VPN client entirely configured on the Adaptive Security Appliance that provides the full AnyConnect ability with the following exceptions. No CSD, including host scan, vault, or cache cleaner. No client-class SSL VPN. Optional Windows Mobile support. The AnyConnect Essential client provides remote end users running Microsoft Windows Vista, Windows Mobile, Windows XP, or Windows 2000, Linux or Macintosh OS X with the benefits of Cisco SSL VPN client. So you can say the AnyConnect Essential is nothing but the client. So if you want the capability of the full tunneling in your environment, and if you do not want to invest more into the other features of the AnyConnect, like the CSD, this is the secure desktop I'm talking about here, and you do not want the client-class VPN, or you do not want the Windows Mobile support, then you can go for the AnyConnect Essential license, which has started from code 8.2 onwards. So now let's talk about the configuration preparation for the AnyConnect. First of all, what we do for the AnyConnect Essential is that we prepare the interface on which the client has to connect on. On this screen, as you see, I've got three interfaces in my device: the outside, inside, and the management. And the checkbox access interfaces, you see that I have checked the enable Cisco AnyConnect VPN client access on the interface selected in the table. So outside interface has been checked for allow access. The DTLS, Datagram Transport Layer Security, has been enabled on that. DTLS is the transport mechanism for the data payload in the UDP. So this is a Cisco proprietary protocol, and as you already know, that TLS is actually only for the TCP. But here, what we do is we create a separate tunnel on the DTLS on the UDP, and the SSL primary tunnel, which is on TCP, acts as a control mechanism, and the data travels in this particular tunnel. In case if the DTLS goes down, the traffic can move on to the SSL tunnel without causing any disruption in the traffic. On the below box, as you see, the access port is 443 and DTLS port is same as 443. There is no confusion here because one is TCP 443, which is the main SSL tunnel, and the second is the UDP. So these are two different servers we are talking about in the ASI. Now, you see here login page settings. This is a very important setting. Users with experience with the Cisco IPsec VPN client, they know that there has to be a setting called the group name and the group password. In AnyConnect, the concept of groups and the password is actually a little different than the IPsec VPN client. And the ability to browse the groups and the password is actually up to the administrator if he would like the user to have the ability to select the tunnel group or not. So this setting, the login page setting, you see there is a checkbox, and I have not checked it, but you can check it if you want to give the ability to the user to browse the groups and available groups on the ASI. So it says allow user to select connection profile identified by its alias on the login page. Otherwise, default web VPN group will be the connection profile. So the default web VPN group is the most important tunnel group as far as AnyConnect or the web VPN is concerned. Create identity certificate. As this is an SSL tunnel, we're going to need an identity certificate on the interface or on the device. So first we're going to create the identity certificate. And if you go to Configuration Remote Access VPN Certificate Management Identity Certificate, you will see the box over there as the main box which is behind the dialog. If you'll click on Add over there, you will see the dialog box as Add Identity Certificate. Here is the trust point as ASDM underscore trust point 0. You can have it named as you wish. If you would like to import certificate from a third-party certificate server, as in Verizon, Baltimore, or Thate, you can do so by selecting the radio button for import the identity certificate from a file if the administrator of that certificate server has given you a file. If you want to create a new certificate, add a new identity certificate, you need to select this particular checkbox. If you are sending a CSR, certificate signing request, to the CA server, the key pair is default RSA key. You can also generate a new key pair, a labeled key pair, to be used with this particular certificate. Now here the certificate subject name is the ASA-1. So CN is the common name, which equals to ASA-1. It is the host name of the ASA. This host name is important for the SSL because in SSL you can also have a SAN field, subject alternate field. In subject alternate field, the requirement is that you should provide the FQDN of the ASA. So SAN field and the CN field are two important fields for the SSL certificates. Now here I'm going to generate a self-signed certificate. So I will put a checkbox here if you're generating a self-signed certificate. Once you do a self-signed certificate, and if you want to change the attributes of the self-signed certificates, you can click on the Advanced button. Once you click on the Advanced button, the new dialog box will open up, which is the Advanced Options at the top. Advanced Options at the top. And here, if you see that certificate parameters, the FQDN is going as asa-1.sectech.com. And if you click on OK, the certificate will be, the self-signed certificate is going to be generated. Once the certificate has been generated, we need to assign the certificate to the interface. Now on this screen, which is Configuration, Remote Access VPN, Advanced SSL Settings, you see here the first two drop-downs. The first two drop-downs are actually for the clientless web VPN, not for the AnyConnect. It says here that the SSL version of the security appliance to negotiate as a server. So in the AnyConnect, this checkbox makes a difference. So the drop-down gives you the suggestions as SSL version 1, SSL version 3, TLS version 1, or any. And the second is when the ASA is acting as a client. So in the web VPN, you know that the ASA is going to act as a proxy for the user. So in that case, in which protocol you're going to negotiate the cipher selections and everything as a client. You see the encryptions available and the active algorithms. If you do not see 3DES or AES available as the available algorithms in your device, please check your license if you have the 3DES or AES is enabled on the device or not. The 3DES and AES are the free licenses by Cisco, so you can search for that on the cco.com, or I can provide you the website to go to get the license for 3DES and AES. Once you add that, they will be available in your active algorithms. Then the next screen is for the certificates. Specify which certificate, if any, should be used for SSL authentication on each interface. So now here I have selected my outside. If you click on Edit over there, you will be able to select the primary enrolled certificate. The drop-down will give you all the certificates which you have on the ASI. So right now this is my certificate, new identity, CN equals to ASA-1, organization unit, which is OU equals to TAC, O equals to Cisco, and all the parameters over there. The load balancing enrolled certificate is a different certificate, and load balancing is a topic in itself. But as you know, the load balancing, you can have the load balancing, and if you're doing it for the SSL VPN clients, then you must have a separate load balancing certificate installed on the interface. Because we are not doing any load balancing, we'll keep the checkbox as none and we'll click on OK. I already talked about this image, right? Okay. Assign certificates to the interface. And then we're going to go to the next slide, which is upload AnyConnect image. So without the AnyConnect image, the user will not be able to load the AnyConnect on its PC. So there are, as we already talked about, there are two. We're going to talk about that in the deployment, like how you can deploy the AnyConnect. So in short, there are actually two ways to deploy that. Either you can use the .msi extension file, which you can install separately, independently on the PC, or you can use the web deployment method. In the web deployment method, what happens is the user opens his or her browser, IE or Firefox, and point its browser URL to the ASA AnyConnect ASA URL. So say suppose, as you remember that I have named my asa-1.sectech.com, so I'm going to go to https://asa-1.sectech.com, and I'll hit enter. Since this is a self-send generated certificate, the browser is going to give me a warning that this certificate is not trusted because the browser doesn't have any root CA to validate that particular certificate. If you click on continue over there, you'll be given a prompt for login to the web VPN page. Once at the web VPN page, you can download the AnyConnect. We're going to talk about that. So in the upload AnyConnect image, what you're going to do is you can upload it in two ways, in rather multiple ways. The first is you're gonna hit on add. Once you click on the add button, the secondary dialog box is gonna open up, and there are either you can TFTP the AnyConnect.pkg file to the ASA flash. If it is already in flash, then you should hit on browse flash and select your AnyConnect image which you want to register with the configuration, or you can upload it from your own desktop. So if you have downloaded the AnyConnect image from the website on your PC, click on upload here, and then on the next dialog box you can select the image which is on your PC and upload it onto the flash, and that image will automatically be selected as AnyConnect image. Here also you see that there are regular expressions to match user agent, and if you want, you can have that with Windows XP. The AnyConnect 2.2 image should work. With Windows Vista, a different image should work, and so on. You can have that as well. So regular expressions are very, very handy at that point when you would like to select which client should be downloaded for which machine, which operating system. The tunnel groups and the group policy, no doubt the most important part of the configurations. So what are the tunnel groups and group policy? So the tunnel groups are the connection specific settings. So if you have any experience of configuring any kind of a client like IPsec VPN client, you know that you create a tunnel group by the name of the group policy which you have, by the name of the group which you are distributing in the PCF file to the user. So here the tunnel group is of the same kind, and you provide the connection specific settings and all settings like DHCP, address pools, authentication servers, etc. Whereas in the group policy, the business logic, the enterprise network access policy, and things like that goes, as in the split tunnel, the banner, etc. So the network access policy, from this, I mean that, say suppose there is a user in the sales group and he's allowed to go to the sales server and not on any other server, then you can assign the filters in the group policy, and the filter is going to push to each user who's connecting in the tunnel group which is binded to that group policy. Quite a handful, I see, but it's actually, once you get the hang of the configuration, you know that it's pretty straightforward. Now let's prepare the configuration. If you go to Configuration Remote Access VPN Network Client Access, AnyConnect Connection Profiles, you will see the default web VPN group. If you added the default web VPN group, this dialog box is going to open up, the bigger dialog box, and it says the basic. The basic is selected, and you see their default web VPN group and the aliases. Remember on the first slide when we were preparing the interface, there was a checkbox, allow users to browse the tunnel groups. If you have it checked, then you must provide the aliases here. So say suppose I provided the alias sales. Then when the user is trying to connect with his or her AnyConnect client, there will be a drop-down created automatically on its AnyConnect client, which will have sales as a group policy. If you do not have it there, the user will only have the user and password. The user will not have the luxury to choose which tunnel group he or she is going to. So the default web VPN group, that is the reason, is the most important tunnel group in the web VPN configuration, including AnyConnect. Here the authentication method is local. So you see we support 3 authentication methods, the AAA, the certificate, and both. So that means you can have the certificate as well as AAA to authenticate the user and the machine if you want. So right now I have selected AAA, and the AAA server group is local. The client address assignment, since this is a full tunnel client and there is a virtual adapter on the client PC, which requires an IP address so that the TCP/IP stack can come up in the operating system. So the IP address can also be provided by either DHCP servers or the client address pools, and the IP version 6 address pools as well are supported. So if you see that I have my pool selected here, and on the if you see at the button, you have the button to select, and this is the select address pool is the dialog box which opens up. You see I've got two pools over there, base pool 1 and my pool. My pool has the range 192.168.1.1 till 1.40 with the subnet mask of /24, and my pool is selected. And then at the bottom you see the default group policy. Default group policy is default group policy selected. So with the default web VPN group, the default group policy is selected, and which is actually the default, actually, as the name suggests. So here the checkbox enable SSL VPN client protocol. So this checkbox is also necessary for you. Otherwise, the AnyConnect VPN client will not be able to connect. And in the ASDM syslog, you will see the message unsupported tunnel protocol or unconfigured tunnel protocol. Configuring user. Configuration, device management, users /AAA, and user accounts. So this is how you can prepare a user if you have selected the AAA server as local. So that means the ASA should know about that user. So from this screen, configuration, device management, users -AAA, user account, you can configure the users here. And you see the identity. The first is the identity, where you will provide the username and the password, and then the VPN policy. So here is the VPN policy. So per user, you can assign a group policy. So per user, the group policy, I have it as inherit. So that means it is picking it up from the default user, which has everything inherit. So if you want, you can actually have that. You can uncheck the inherit box and write your own group policy here, which you have already created. So say suppose this user belongs to sales, you can assign this particular policy, the sales policy, if you'll create that in the group policy, to this particular user. Now all the filters and everything can be assigned per user. So these are all the features, all the fields you can assign per user, like tunneling protocols, IP version 4 filters, IP version 6 filters, tunnel group lock, store password on client system, and so on and on. And this is going to be very cumbersome for you if you've got a lot of users. So in the case if you have a lot of users, even 10 users or a lot of users, you can use LDAP server to manage the user accounts, because most of the customers or the users out there, they will have Active Directory acting as a user repository, where all the users are already configured in the Active Directory, and Active Directory can act as an LDAP server as well by default. So we can use the LDAP server. We can configure the LDAP server on AAA, on the ASA, and the AnyConnect configuration can utilize that particular LDAP server to authenticate the user, as well as authorize the user for a certain group policy, or can push filters and other things. So here is how we will configure an LDAP server. We'll go to configuration, device management, user-AAA and AAA server group. There we will create a server group for the LDAP, and then we will bind a server to that particular group. And here is the screen for that particular server. So server group is W2K3, interface name is inside, server name or IP address, the timeout, server port, server type, and so on. So here the naming attribute is SAM account name, which is by default for the Active Directory. Now I have the scope for the search for that particular user as all levels beneath the base DN, and the base DN is sectag DC. That DC is COM. So that means the user is going to be searched in the entire tree. The login DN is the admin and the login password, and this is the login and the password which the ASA is going to use to search for that particular user. You also see the checkbox enable LDAP over SSL. So if you do want to give the user the flexibility of changing its password, or if you have the policy in the security policy in the company that the user must change password after a certain amount of time, then the LDAP over SSL has to be enabled. So the port will change to 689, and the SSL certificate has to be installed in the Active Directory, on the Active Directory server. Without that, without the LDAP over SSL, the LDAP protocol does not give you the ability to change the user passwords. And on the error which will be registered in the syslog will be something like system error not supported. So we'll go back to the main thing, how you can actually map the user existing in the LDAP directory or on the Active Directory to the group policy. So you'll go to configuration, remote access VPN, AAA local users, LDAP attribute map. We will create an attribute map. So the attribute map is something which you can create on the ASA. And as you know, that LDAP throws a lot of attributes on the ASA. It doesn't do anything in itself. LDAP server doesn't take any decision by itself, and it actually is the responsibility of the NAC to take the decision. So the LDAP server is going to throw you all the attributes, and the ASA has to take the decision on that. So the attribute we're going to create, we're going to go to the add attribute map. Add attribute map. I'm going to give a name to this attribute map as my map, and then mapping of attribute name. So here you see that LDAP attribute name is member of. So the LDAP attribute which is called member of, I'm going to map it to a Cisco attribute which is group-policy. So now you see here that LDAP is giving us member of, and I can actually map that particular attribute with any Cisco attribute. So when a member of sales will be there in the user's attribute, then I'm going to assign a group policy to that user. After clicking on add, I can use the mapping of attribute value. Right now I'm only mapping the attribute which is coming from the LDAP server, and I'm telling ASA that when you see a member of keyword, map it with the group policy. Right now I have not told ASA what will be there as a member of. So that is possible if you go to the tab mapping of attribute value. We will be able to do that mapping of the value here.
Okay, let's move into our second polling question. On which operating system have you encountered the most installation problems? Is it A, Mac OS, B, Windows XP, Vista, or 7, C, a flavor of Unix, or Linux, sorry. Please take a moment and answer, and we'll have a look at the results. Okay, let's take a look at the results. I'm sorry if you weren't able to see that. Let's give the audience another moment to answer. Once again, that's Mac OS, Windows XP, Vista, or 7, or a flavor of Unix, or Linux. Let's have a look at the results. Okay, Vikas, back to you.
All right, thank you, Dan. All right, here is the attribute mapping value I was talking about. So in the attribute mapping, which you can find in configuration, remote access VPN, AAA local users, the LDAP attribute map, which we were editing on the previous slide, you see here the CN equals to admin, OU equals to sales, DC equals to sectac, -DC equals to com has been binded with the sales group. So LDAP attribute value box you see here on the left hand side will get the CN equals to admin, OU equals to sales, DC is equals to sectac, DC equals to com, and the Cisco attribute value is going to be the sales group. So how is this going to work? When the user is trying to get authenticated from the LDAP server, the NAC, which is the ASA, is going to send a request for the authentication to the LDAP server. LDAP server is going to push all the attributes which the user is binded to the ASI, and ASA has to take the decision. In that, the ASA will find an attribute called member of. We binded that member of attribute with a group policy. So that means whenever a member of attribute will come, ASA will look for a matching group policy based on the LDAP attribute value, which we will assign in this screen. So right now I want if the OU equals to sales is there in the member of attribute of the LDAP, I need to assign that user to the sales group, and this is a way to complete that task. Creating and distributing profiles. So what is a profile? A profile is is an XML file that provides basic as well as advanced connection setup features. The XML schema is different for each version of client. So if you're trying to use an attribute in the profile, say a proxy bypass. Now proxy bypass is a feature of 2.4 version of AnyConnect client, not 2.3 or 2.2. So if you have a 2.3 or 2.2 client on the ASA flash, and if you try to use the proxy bypass feature, you will get an error by the ASDM schema validation error. So that means you're using an attribute in the XML profile which is not for the 2.3 client. It can be deployed based on global or group specific configuration, and the profile is a wide topic in itself, and I would suggest you to go to the AnyConnect administrator guide for further information, because it has a lot of information in it, and it is the complete guide. So if you have a profile, you can actually, this is the way to assign that profile to that particular group. So if you go to the default, we are at the default group policy. We have added the default group policy this time, and you know that we are in the advanced tab for the SSL VPN client. And here you see that client profile to download is prof-dn-matching. So this is the name of the profile which I have created. The other aspects on this screen are keep installer on client system. Yes, that means when the user disconnects, the client will not delete itself. The installer, the client is going to be installed on the system. Compression is disabled. Datagram TLS is enabled. Ignore don't fragment bit is disabled. Routing and filtering rules are disabled. So these are, again, the AnyConnect topic in itself is a very wide topic, so I cannot go deep on these attributes. My apologies for that. I'm going to go back to the next slide. The login settings. Configuration, remote access VPN, network client access, and the group policies. Here we are telling that as soon as the user connects to the portal, when I say portal, that means I'm referring to the first-time user who's trying to get connected to the AnyConnect, but he or she doesn't have a client on the system. So what will happen? So he or she is going to open the browser, point the URL to the ASA, and a login box will appear. That will be the clientless web VPN portal. And here you can have the login setting in the default group policy. Again, you will go to the SSL VPN client and login setting, and you see here it says do not prompt user to choose, and default post login selection is download SSL VPN client. With the AnyConnect Essential, these settings have to be there, because AnyConnect Essential does not give you the facility of clientless web VPN, which is web VPN. Other configuration changes. The other configuration changes are the NAT0 access list, which is the NAT bypass access list. So in the ASDM, what you can do, you can go to configuration, remote access VPN, network client access, advanced SSL VPN bypass interface access list. So this is the sysopt connection permit VPN command. So when the VPN client is trying to communicate to the resources on the inside, it will not be subject to the access list which is on the outside interface. So if you have this checkbox selected, then it is equivalent to having the command sysopt connection permit VPN in the configuration. And the next dialog is actually the NAT exempt rule. Here I have the NAT action is exempt, interface is from inside, source is inside network /24, destination is VPN pool. NAT exemption direction is from inside to outside. If I click on OK here, the NAT bypass access list will be created. Other configuration changes. In the other configuration changes, we have to make sure that the pool, which was 192.168.1. something in my network, is routed properly to the inside sources, inside routers, if you have a big network on the inside. or you can use a tunnel default gateway. The tunnel default gateway is a default gateway for the encrypted connections. So by default, if ASA doesn't have a route for the destination on the inside, you can have the traffic go to the default gateway. If the ASA pool is same as the inside subnet, then you must have proxy ARP enabled. If you want, right, since AnyConnect is a full tunnel client, if you do not have a split tunnel, then all the internet-bound traffic is going to come to you, is going to come to the ASA as well. If you want, you can assign in the split tunnel as well. We'll come to the other important aspect of the AnyConnect, which is the troubleshooting. So in AnyConnect, we have a marvelous utility called Diagnostic AnyConnect Reporting Tool, or the Dart bundle. We'll touch upon the Dart bundle in a few minutes. So we can collect debug web VPN SVC, which will give you the internal protocol details of the AnyConnect and where it could be failing. The syslogs for that connection, and the debug LDAP 255 in case you have LDAP attribute mapping. So we'll talk about the Dart bundle. It's a troubleshooting tool for client on Windows platform, used for troubleshooting installation and connection problems on the client side, installable tool by the user, and does not require administrative privileges. Can also be pushed by the firewall administrator. It collects setup API log, AnyConnect Windows events, routing table changes, different profiles in the PC and the MS config. It is not version dependent on AnyConnect client and can be run independently by the user. Here it's just a screenshot for the Dart bundle. Common problems. So the common problems which we get the cases on every day in TAC is the blue screen of death. Now, blue screen of death is actually not a common problem, so I will not say that as a common problem. User is able to connect, but policy is not pushed. In that case, what you can do, you can check monitoring, VPN statistics, session for SSL VPN client, and note the group policy which is being pushed. Is it different than what is supposed to be? How are you assigning the group policy or tunnel groups? If LDAP, then collect debug LDAP 255 and note the member of attribute. Then check the LDAP attribute map. If user authentication is local, then check the user setting and see if the correct policy has been assigned. In the case of the local user, you can collect debug AAA common 127. User is able to connect, correct policy has been assigned, but cannot access the network. In that case, check NAT exempt, check routing. Traffic destined to the client should come to the ASA inside or LAN side where destination is located. Interface. If not inside, then is the NAT exempt configured for that interface? Is there an access list on that interface? Does ASA have the route to reach the destination? Is there a host firewall on the destination host, maybe IPsec VPN client with stateful firewall turned on? Is the default gateway correct on the destination PC? Does your split tunnel, if configured, has the destination as allowed traffic?
Okay, thank you, Vikas. Let's move quickly into our last polling question. Which VPN topics would you like to see in a future webcast? Cisco Secure Desktop, certificates, dynamic access policy, or lightweight directory access protocol? Take a moment to answer. And let's have a look at the results. Excellent. Thank you, Vikas. Excellent presentation. Also, thank you to everyone for participating in the event polling. Now it's time to answer some of the questions that you, our viewers, have submitted today. And you can still submit those questions, so please keep on doing so. By the way, if you can't stay with us for the discussion, please be sure to click on the evaluation button and let us know how this session met your business needs and expectations. The first 10 listeners to complete the evaluation will receive a $20 Amazon gift card. Okay, let's move into the Q&A portion. Start with the first question here. Can I enable web VPN with AnyConnect Essential License?
You cannot enable web VPN with AnyConnect Essential License. So AnyConnect Essential License is specifically for AnyConnect only. And for that, you need to give the command AnyConnect Essential on the web VPN. And after that, the web VPN feature will be disabled from the ASI. So it's only for the full tunnel. It's a plain vanilla client. It's the same client actually, but without any other features enabled in it.
Okay, thank you. Let's have a look at question 2 here. Seems like a large question, but give it a shot. Could you sum up all the VPN clients with a little bit of history up until now, the latest version with differences in capabilities?
I can try to, but this answer is not going to be an authenticated answer. This answer is going to be like a user who has used all the clients. So I'll start with the 3.x client for the Cisco IPsec VPN client, which was the IPsec client. It does not have the virtual adapter in it. So the protocols which have the IP address configuration information inside the payload as the FTP or the Outlook, they had a lot of problems without the virtual adapter. So that was the first start with that. Before that, the IPsec VPN client was the I'll give you the name for that company. It was the name of the company just skipped my mind. It's a prominent company. So we used that client for the VPN concentrator at that time. So with the 4.5 came the difference of the virtual adapter. With 4.0, the concept of virtual adapter came in, and the virtual adapter made a lot of lives easier. Since it was a virtual adapter, the split tunnel was functioning very properly. And since there was a virtual adapter, then the troubleshooting aspect was also became easier because we were able to capture packets on the virtual adapter. And since it was virtual adapter, we were able to put the routing information in place properly on the OS. Then the major advancement was the 64-bit client or the Windows or the new operating systems which came in the market. The Windows Vista, the Windows 7, and the 64-bit clients. And the features, as far as the features are concerned in the VPN clients, there was not much of a feature differentiation between each client, and the features were mostly limited to the RSA, whether we support RSA, whether we support soft tokens, whether we support Aladdin's, how big is the certificate, and so on and on. The AnyConnect is the major advancement in the SSL VPN technology, and we have the features which we have never tested with IPsec VPN client, and like tunnel on demand connection, the DTLS, and so on. And I think, if I'm not wrong, if I see the roadmap of the AnyConnect client, I think in future we're going to support IPsec with the IKE v2 in the AnyConnect client as well.
Well, thanks, Vikas. Let's go to another question here. Is client authentication supported in SSL VPN?
Yes, the client authentication is supported in SSL VPN. So you have the capability of client certificates as well. And the user, the ASI can check the client certificate, and you can have the certificate maps as well. So as in the case of LDAP attribute maps, you can have certificate maps configured. So if a user who belongs to a department called sales will have a certificate with the OU as sales. Now you can have that particular user automatically binded to the sales group or in any other group which you want. So certificate map is a very good feature, and we have client authentication support in SSL VPN, including AnyConnect. So the next question is, can you please give us demo how to create XML profile? We will be able to give you a demo. I think we will be able to post a demo on the Ask the Expert series, and you can come back and check that. I'll move on to the next question. The question is, can I prevent certain users from unknown location or untrusted PC to be connected to a network? Yes, you actually can do that. I think you cannot do that with AnyConnect Essential, but you can do that with full AnyConnect license. You can have the flexibility of using the CSD, which can check the locations and other things as well. I'll move on to the next question.
Yep, I can read the next question here. Sorry.
Please go ahead.
Came back. In which scenario would we need to use tunnel group mapping?
Let's take a scenario of a general user. When I say a general user, is just a username and password which can be distributed freely to everybody. Now, this user is used to log into the web VPN portal so that the client can be downloaded. Next, when the user is trying to launch the AnyConnect client, the user is going to use his or her own user ID and password to log into the client, log into the network. Now, if you do not have tunnel group locking, then since these two users, say the general user was the username for that general user is gen user, and the username for a proper user is Vikas. Now, both of these users, they exist on Active Directory, but gen user, you can have the member of attribute set in the gen user as a member of say anything. Say you can create a group here which says no VPN, and you can have a tunnel group there as default tunnel group. You already have a tunnel group over there as default web VPN tunnel group. Now, when the gen user comes in, he only should have access to tunnel group, default web VPN tunnel group. In this tunnel group, you have restricted the access to this particular tunnel group to only to go to a particular server from where you can download your active, something like as you do in the posture assessment. So you can set up an HTTP server over there. You can to download the antivirus or patches or things like that. And once the client is downloaded, client is ready, the user can use his or her own username and password. Here you have to use the tunnel group lock so that you can lock the gen user to the default web VPN group. Otherwise, if the user, because you have enabled tunnel alias, the gen user client will be able to log into the another tunnel group as well.
Okay, excellent. Let's move on to another question here. Can we configure QoS for remote VPN, particularly for voice traffic?
QoS on ASA is actually not a regular QoS per se, because you cannot mark the traffic with the DHCP values, or you cannot expedite the traffic. There are only two queues in the ASA, which is the low latency queue and the best effort queue. If you do not have QoS, everything is going to be in a big general queue. If you will enable QoS, then based on the marking on the traffic, we cannot mark the traffic, but we respect the marking which is already there on the traffic. And based on the marking, we can put the traffic to the LL queue, or we can put the traffic in the best effort queue. That's all we can do on the ASA currently.
Excellent. I think that's all the time we have for the Q&A portion of today's event. If you have additional questions for Vikas, you can log on to the Cisco Support Community website, Vikas will be there answering questions over the next 2 weeks. If you have not explored the Cisco support community, please take a moment to check out this excellent resource at the following URL that you see there. Also, we have another TechWise TV broadcast coming up on January 6th. The topic will be raising the bar on desktop virtualization. Be sure to check out this great new series inside Cisco Live and Networkers Virtual. Also, currently, if you are only a guest member of Cisco Live and Networkers Virtual, you have 2 options for upgrading your membership. Right now, you can upgrade to the Virtual Premier Pass, which will give you full access for only $395 or 5 Cisco Learning credits. Also, if you're only looking for a few specific sessions and are not ready to upgrade to the full Premier Pass, we also have an option for you. Our new a la carte pass enables you to purchase individual sessions for only $45 each. Also, if you are new to Cisco Live Virtual, we encourage you to explore the virtual environment, including the Cisco and partner booths in the world of solutions, the on-demand technical sessions, and the session catalog, as well as the blog center. Also, coming up, we have Cisco Live taking place in London in 2011. That's taking place January 31st to February 3rd. Remember, if you cannot attend in person, you can always attend virtually right here inside the virtual environment. We'll have a 2-day hybrid event, and that will take place February 1st to the 2nd.